No rush. I'll just talk a little faster.
I'm trying to think of who else was supposed to
I mean, you can get started.
Stella's sick.
Oh, wait. We're good.
No, Tony was at work. Georgia was supposed to come, but I think she's cooking for a funeral. And Stella got sick,
I don't think so.
so she called. So she was coming. Oh, 5 was me doing. One, yourself. 2, 3, 4, 5.
Well, it's just 3 pages of education. I remember a lot.
Yeah.
I never heard of this thing before. I never heard of this.
Naloxone?
Yeah. It's really Narcan.
I know.
Okay.
No problem.
No problem.
No problem whatsoever. Yeah. So I want to start with a statement that I believe firmly with every cell of my body that while there is breath, there is hope.
Yes.
So I want to, and I have to say, doing this presentation in the front of a sanctuary feels very, very comfortable to me. My husband and I have been married for 33 years, and we've been pastors for 32 of those. We retired about a year ago for about 3.5 months. And the church that we started attending asked us if we would consider serving on staff. So we are back on staff of a church, but as assistant pastors, which is a lot easier gig, let me tell you. Thank you so much for having me here to talk to you today about a really important subject, and one that you hear a lot about, but maybe don't hear all the facts. So I want to make sure that you've got the facts and the truth of what's going on in our community. You may have seen recently that Yakima County, the county as a whole, is had a spike in overdoses of fentanyl.
Yeah.
Okay, those are not overdose deaths; those are just overdoses, which we didn't even track for a long time. So my name is Katie Goodale, and I work for an organization called Safe Yakima Valley, and we are involved in making all of the valley safer and healthier by preventing substance use and misuse. One of the projects that we've been working on is called an OD mapping project. OD deaths have been tracked for a long time through fire, rescue, EMS folks, but just an OD that does not result in death was not being tracked. So we had no real idea of what the problem was in our county. Now that's being tracked, and we're getting reports from EMS, fire, police, from many of the different communities. One of the things that happened, our system went live in January of this tracking system. Yakima County was at one point 17th in the state for OD numbers. We jumped as we went live. We are now the 2nd in the state for ODs from fentanyl. So the fact that you're here and interested in learning about how we can help folks that are struggling with addiction is really important, and I want to thank you for taking the time to do that. This is me. I am the president-elect of Toppenish Rotary. I've been working in prevention work for over 15 years. Like I said, I've been in ministry for 33. I have 3 of the most amazing kids in the whole wide world. And if you have kids, I'm sorry, but mine are the most amazing. And more so, my 2 grandkids are even the most amazing. The reason that I do prevention work and have done prevention work for so many years has kind of shifted as my life circumstances have changed. But I have to say now that my 2 grandbabies are the reason that I want to see Yakima County be one of the healthiest, safest places for people to live. Because I want them to grow up in a community that's free from substance use.
That's right.
I believe it's possible. And working in prevention, I believe it's possible because anything's possible, because God makes everything possible.
That's right.
But also the science is backing it. So the science is showing by numbers that when we invest money and time and energy in prevention, we really do move the needle into how many students are impacted by substances. That's why I do what I do. The Narcan training that we're going to go through today is one of the aspects of what we do. This training is not necessarily considered prevention work. So prevention is making the community a safe place for kids to not use substances. The other end of that spectrum is that we want to make sure that we have effective treatment for folks that are struggling. Right in the middle is where we're going to be today. And that's called harm reduction. So it's not prevention, it's not stopping people from starting, it's not treatment that it's helping people stop. It's just keeping them alive long enough to get the help they need. So that's called harm reduction. And that's where we're going to spend a little bit of time today. This whole training is only about 30 minutes, so you won't have to listen to me for very long. But it's important that we do it. My motto in life, other than my scriptural motto, my motto in life is live your life in such a way that anyone who wants to speak evil of you has to lie to do it. And so I believe that's how we make a good community, is we live in a way that if somebody wants to speak evil of me, they're going to have to lie to do it, because my life shows who I believe in and what I believe.
Amen.
So if you could be, you get to talk. Yay, for half a minute. If you could be any superhero, and I don't mean Jesus or the apostles, I don't mean that. You can answer that if you want, but if you could be any superhero, who would you be?
Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman. Who else?
Superman.
Superman. Why?
Batman.
Why? Because he flies.
Because he's super.
Because he's super. What else? Who would we be?
Batman.
Batman. Why?
Because he's got a cool car.
He's got a cool car, right?
He fights the enemy.
He fights the enemy. I would say, has anybody seen the movie The Incredibles?
Yes.
I would be Mrs. Incredible because I would love to stand at the door of Safeway and just be able to reach down, get all my groceries, and not have to move anywhere. I think that would be really cool. Anybody else? What if you could be any superhero? Who would you be?
The Hulk.
The Hulk. Why?
Because he's so misunderstood.
So you relate. Right.
A little bit.
Anybody else?
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
Oh,
He's
that's
cool,
my second
cool
choice.
webs.
Because of the webs. My grandson would agree with me. He goes around like that. He's 5 and he goes around like that all
I
the
like
time.
to be Porky Pig.
Porky Pig is a superhero?
He's my superhero.
He's your superhero. That's cool. We'll
Because you
fly
know
with
why?
it.
Because
The-
they used
that's all,
to
folks?
be able not to eat them, and now we can.
Ah, okay. All right, awesome. Well, I have good news for you. You are going to be able to be a superhero. Because when you're done with this training, you will have the skills and the knowledge to be able to save a life. And we know that as long as there's breath, there's hope. So what are opioids? You hear that word a lot, opioids, opioids. What is it? What is it? What is it? Opioids is really just a class of medications. It is a class, sometimes it's called narcotics. Sometimes it's called opioids or opiates. In the United States, we have 100 million surgeries a year, average. And 70% of those, the patient is prescribed opioids after surgery or after dental work. So that, if you figure 100 million surgeries, 70% of that, so 70 million people, are prescribed opioids every year in this country. America and Canada have the highest rate of opioid prescription, and we also have the highest OD rates. Is there a correlation? I kind of think there might be. So some common names that you might have heard that are opioids are Oxycontin. You might have heard that. These are ones that are prescribed. So these are legal prescription medicine. Oxycontin, Vicodin, morphine. And then we move into some like heroin, which obviously is an illegal drug, but it's also an opioid. And then we have things, the highly addictive synthetic, means it's made, it's made in a lab it's an opioid. It's 50% stronger than heroin and 100% stronger than morphine. And that's fentanyl.
And that's just one pill?
One pill.
Or just a speck of a rock?
A speck of a rock can be dangerous, but for someone that's smoking it.
Right.
The local data this is all of Yakima County, not just Toppenish, but Yakima County. In 2023, we don't have the 2025 numbers yet, or the 2024 numbers aren't done yet, but we had 95 drug overdose deaths. So remember I said we weren't tracking just ODs, we were only tracking deaths at that time. And there was 95 of them in 2023. 72% of that 95 were due to an opioid. 18% of them were among people who were 18 to 29 years old, or 20 to 29 years old. People just at the start of life, right? 20 to 29. That's a long way back for me. Just at the beginning of life. 30 of them were between 30 and 39, so that's the mid-range. Those are, a lot of those began their opioid misuse due to surgery or dental work. And then 21% of the deaths were among 40 to 49 years old. So we're talking about, I always hesitate when I start sharing statistics because it sounds like just a bunch of numbers and percentages. I like to say, remember that statistics are people with the emotion removed.
Right.
So these are actual people that this is happening to. It's not just numbers. So we want to remember that. Signs of an opioid overdose. So when we see this happen in someone, this is how we I want you to be able to stick it in your brain that if you see this going on, that's the first thing that you should be thinking. This may be an opioid overdose. Okay? So they have trouble waking up. So if they've fallen on the ground, they have trouble waking up. How many people have taken like a CPR or a first aid class? What's the first thing you're told to do? You push them on the chest or shake them and say, hey, wake up, right? Same thing. Same thing for this. You're going to use the same skill. If you have trouble waking up, if their breathing has slowed or stopped, if they turn blue or gray, and typically you'll see that around the lips first, so they'll turn blue or gray. Blue is not a good sign in a human being, unless it's your eyes. Any other part of your body turns blue, it's not a good thing. So that's a thing to remember. Or if their skin will turn pale or blue. Those are because oxygen is being deprived. They're not getting oxygen in because they've stopped breathing, and that's what causes that blue. So one of the things that we have at our disposal, and you may have heard, we call it naloxone because that is kind of the generic term for it, but you may have heard it referred to as Narcan.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay? So Narcan and naloxone are exactly the same thing. Naloxone is just kind of more of a general term for it. And Narcan is the brand. So this is a Narcan, this is a sample. I'm going to pass it around to you. This is what it looks like when it comes. It's in a little nasal spray, the ones that we use. Narcan also does come in a shot that you can give, but typically this is what we distribute because people get really freaked out about shots. But this is really easy to use. So I'm going to pass this around. So there's none in here. So you can just try it to see what it works. So go ahead and pass it around so you can see how that works.
Where can you get these to keep
I'll
them?
give you some today.
Oh, okay.
Don't jump ahead of me. Wait.
I'm sorry, I'm always ahead of myself.
So naloxone is a medication that what it does is it binds itself to the opioid receptors. So in your brain, you have these things called an opioid receptor, and it kind of looks like a little tulip. And the opioid comes and sits on top of that tulip, and then no other information can get through there to the brain. So the information to keep breathing, they can't get because this opioid has blocked it. So what Narcan does is it attaches itself to the opioid and removes it. It is not a permanent fix. It works for about 15 to 20 minutes, and then that opioid is going to sit on that receptor again. So a lot of times what ends up happening is someone will get a dose of Narcan and they come to, and then they get left alone and they overdose again. They don't have to take any more drugs. The drugs are this doesn't get the drugs out of their system. The drug is still in their system. So the first thing we do when you take a CPR class, they tell you, what's the first thing to do? Shake them and then call 911. Same thing. The same thing is true here. If you are going to administer Narcan to someone, call 911 because you don't know how much drugs they have in their system. You don't know how long it's going to take that they could be conscious before they turn unconscious again. So we want to make sure that we've got help on the way, right? We're just doing whatever we can just to keep them breathing, to keep hope until help can get there. So naloxone it only works on opioids, like heroin, fentanyl, Oxycontin. It only works on those. It does not work on others. So if someone's on cocaine, which is not an opioid, it will not stop the cocaine from them. If they're on marijuana, it won't do anything. If they're on nothing, hang on just a second. If they're on nothing and you administer Narcan, it will not hurt them. There's nothing in it that would hurt. You could do it today and it would not do a thing to you. It would not hurt you at all. Go ahead.
So before fentanyl, there was meth overdoses. Does it help?
It does not help meth because meth is not an opioid.
Yeah.
It's a different class of drugs. But thank you for the question. Yeah, this won't help methamphetamines. because that's a different class of drugs that this doesn't help. But heroin, cocaine, or heroin, Oxycontin, oxycodone, those it will help. Now, here's the thing. You don't know what somebody's taken. If they're laying on the ground, they can't tell you what they've taken. No matter what they're on, if you give them Narcan, it will not hurt them. If it's not an opioid, it won't help, but it won't hurt them at all. It won't make it worse. It won't cause any kind of breathing issues. Nothing. It won't help. So just give them that, right?
Right.
Because the worst that can happen is nothing. The best that can happen is you'll save a life.
What about CPR?
And CPR, if you know how to do that and you're trained in that, of course you're going to want to do that as well. I've given you this little Narcan, they call it naloxone education toolkit. And when you finish this training today, you will be, I don't give you a certificate, but you're able to pass this information on to anybody. There's nothing more that, for this kind of education on Narcan, there's nothing more that needs to be said. You'll know the information and you're able to do the training. So if you've got other folks that you're working with or your family or people that might be interested, you're more than qualified after you take this training to go ahead and let them know the facts about what's going on. Now, why should we get involved? I mean, really, why should I get involved? I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to touch fentanyl because fentanyl is so scary. Right? Because it's scary. There's a lot of information out there about fentanyl, and who knows what's right and who knows what's wrong. And I hear this, if I just touch a gram of it, or just a little crumb of it, it could kill me. I have to say that is a lot of sensational hooey. I want you to know the truth. First responders, policemen, EMS, paramedics, emergency room doctors have been dealing with people on fentanyl for years. There is no evidence anywhere that any of them have succumbed to addiction or died or anything else.
I heard from a police officer that last year here, I believe in Toppenish, that a police officer OD'd because he came in contact with some.
I don't know who you spoke. Yeah, I don't know who you spoke to.
Police officer, so I'm just.
Yeah, I don't know who you spoke to. That's not the information we've received from the police or from EMS or the fire department. And nationally, there's been no indication that anyone's died or even become addicted from helping someone with an overdose. So I want to settle your mind in that there are some safety precautions you can take, right? If you're concerned about it, you wear gloves. Or you immediately wash your hands. But I have to tell you, if you're going to wash your hands with soap and water, not with hand sanitizer. Because hand sanitizer, especially if it contains alcohol, opens your pores, and then there's still a very slight chance, but there's a chance that you could, through your skin, absorb something. When fentanyl is prescribed in the hospital by a transdermal patch after you have surgery, and they maybe give you a patch, it takes hours and hours and hours for that fentanyl to penetrate your skin and get into your system. So if that which a doctor would put on you takes hours and hours and hours, if you just happen to touch someone, just go wash your hands. It does not increase your risk at all. Obviously, don't lick your... If you're doing that, we might want to have a conversation about something else if you're licking your hands, or touch your eyes, or stick your finger up your nose, or whatever. Don't do those things. But if you go and wash your hands immediately, there should be no issue. Your risk is very, very, very minimal.
What if you have a scratch or a cut that could get down into the...
It could, but I guess if I have a scratch on my arm and I touch someone, I'd have to rub it in maybe? I think as long as you wash your hands, or if they grab you mean? Typically, someone who is struggling with addiction doesn't let any of that go to waste. Right? So they're not going to have extra on their hands. They're going to have either ingested it somehow, however they choose to ingest it.
If they're OD'd, they're not going to be aware that they're letting it to waste. If they're
True. But probably if they've OD'd, they've used most of what they have anyway.
That's right.
That's why they OD'd.
That's why they OD'd, because they've used, yeah.
You're being more
I suspect maybe there would be a really super minimal risk of if you had an open cut.
You're more worried about infection from their hands.
I think I would be more worried that you'd get an infection from, just unclean and germs and stuff like that than I would a fentanyl overdose or a fentanyl being affected by the fentanyl.
That just a one type, one shot?
It's just
one use, I
yes.
should say?
Yes. So yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about how you do it. So if you see someone that has fallen down and you suspect that it might be an overdose, you're going to shake them. Hello, are you okay? You're going to call 911 or send someone to call 911. And then you would open a Narcan. You take the tip and put it in their nose. I'm not going to put it in my nose, but they put it in their nose and just one plunge. You don't have to shake it to prepare it or anything. It's already prepared. Matter of fact, if you shake it, you might get air bubbles in it that would make it less effective. So you just put it in and push it. And then you wait 1 to 3 minutes. And if they don't wake up, most boxes of Narcan have 2 doses in it. So then you could take the second dose and put it on the other side. And the reason we say wait 1 to 3 minutes is it takes that Narcan a little bit of time to get to the brain to stop that. If you do multiple shots, multiple doses, you're not going to hurt them, but it's just kind of a waste of the product. It's a waste of the Narcan. You don't need to do that. You want to give the drug time to work if they do not come around. Now I have to say, an administration of Narcan is not going to get them up and jumped and ready to go. All you're trying to do is keep them breathing.
Right.
Because while there's breath, there's hope.
Tell them.
So they're not going to get up and dance a jig. And matter of fact, for the most part, what ends up happening is when you administrate Narcan to someone, they're going to come to and they're going to be really angry.
Because you ruined their high.
Because you ruined their high. They pay good money to get high, and you've just ruined it. Now, what I said earlier, it doesn't ruin it for long, 15 to 20 minutes max, before that opioid closes off that receptor again. So that's why most boxes come with 2 doses, because you might have to administer it again. But if you call 911, EMS or whoever the rescue people will come, and then you turn it over to them. Someone who's come off Narcan may have other health issues going on. They may have thrown up and aspirated it. We don't know, right? I'm not a doctor. I don't want to be a doctor. That's why I went into another line of work, because I didn't want to be a doctor. We don't know that. Just like we don't know necessarily what they've taken.
Right.
But when we call 911, it's a good idea to let them know, I have administered Narcan. How many? If you've done it more than once, let them know that, because that's something that we track. Because one of the things that we've noticed in Yakima County is it used to take 1 to 2 doses of Narcan to bring someone around. And because of what's coming out now, which is a little bit stronger than what it was before, sometimes it takes 5 or 6.
Wow.
Now, whether that's just because the fentanyl is stronger, or if that's because we're not waiting the 1 to 3 minutes, or, it could be that everybody, because you can imagine you're at high stress, right? Your adrenaline's gone up because you've seen somebody fall out. So that's scary, and your adrenaline goes up and your heart starts beating, and so maybe you don't, 1 minute is really only 10 seconds, and you're going, okay, that's a minute. And so we're maybe administering more than we need to, but if you can count on your watch 1 to 3 minutes, that's the best way to do it. And stay calm. I always use the analogy of, I try and look like a duck, which means that when I see a duck on the river, they're really calm, right?
Yeah.
Underneath, they may be paddling like mad, but what you see is really calm. And so that's how we want to react in these situations, because adding chaos to chaos doesn't help anybody. But if we can stay calm, administer the Narcan, then we have just given that person another opportunity to have hope.
Amen.
What is it made? I mean, how is it made, and what is it that counteracts the drug? I mean,
it's a medication. Actually, Narcan is a medication, but it's a medication that you don't have to have a prescription for, and you don't have to be a doctor to administer. But it is a medication that deals with the brain, the chemicals in the brain. It's been around for a long time. It used to only be available in the shot form, but with the
Is that
opioid,
when they did it in the heart?
and sometimes they do it right in the heart. That's also epinephrine that they'll do that way too. But usually it's a shot, like kind of like an EpiPen. Has anybody ever seen somebody with an EpiPen?
Yes.
It used to be only administered like that you do it in your thigh like an EpiPen. When the opioid crisis really began to bloom or take off, I don't like to say bloom because it's not like a flower, but when it started to really take over across the country, they wanted to have an easier way for people to be able to administer.
Right.
So that's what happened. But it is a medication. But like I said, it's a medication that, like if you had this in your house and your kids or your grandkids got into it, it wouldn't hurt them in any way, shape, or form. It's just, there's nothing toxic in it at all. The only thing it deals with is opioids. It doesn't deal with anything else. Any other questions?
Does it expire?
It does expire. And if you want a kit today, I'll give you a kit, and it has an expiration date on it. Once they expire, I kind of go against the grain on this one. I would rather have an expired Narcan on hand than none at all.
Right.
So when they do expire, there are organizations that will take back the expired ones. Safe Yakima Valley will take back expired and exchange it for fresh. The Yakima Health District will if they've got any on hand. But I would rather have an expired one than none at all.
Do you know anything about IHS, if they carry them and have them out?
IHS does have them. And actually, I think IHS even has a Narcan vending machine in their lobby.
Oh,
And so does Yakima.
Yeah, yeah.
Yakima does too. They have a vending machine that you don't have to, no questions asked. You can just go, there's no cost. You can just get it.
right.
This shot, is a shot better?
No, it works exactly the same. It works exactly. The reason the nasal spray is better is because people are less intimidated by the nasal spray. People think it's a needle and they have to give a shot and they get all freaked out about it, right? I would too. I don't want to shoot anybody with anything. So there are some different places that you can get naloxone. I brought naloxone and Narcan with me today, and anybody that's interested in having some, I can distribute it and at no cost. My suggestion and my hope and wish for Toppenish is that everybody had Narcan in their glove box of their car. It can freeze in the wintertime, but again, I would rather have some that's frozen and thawed than not have it if I need it. The one thing about administering Narcan is, and even if you carry it, you are not obligated in any way to assist. You're not. So it's like you can go and get your CPR card, but if somebody has a heart attack in a restaurant, you're able to help if you choose to, but you are not obligated to help. It's the same thing with Narcan. There is no legal requirement that you help. As a matter of fact, in the state of Washington, we have what's called a Good Samaritan law, which means if you help someone, they cannot come after you in any way, shape, or form. They can't sue you.
In the 80s, didn't they?
Say again?
Didn't they used to come after you in the 80s?
Yeah, the Good Samaritan law, I think
When did that-
it was in the late 90s, early
Yeah,
2000s,
okay.
that they passed the Good Samaritan law so that if you are rendering aid to someone, you cannot be sued, they can't come after you, any of that kind of thing. You have no liability. Another reason why, even if I'm in question, I'm going to administer Narcan because at the worst it can do is nothing. At the best it can do is really help somebody.
Save their
Now,
life.
the heat, if you have it in your glove box, the heat doesn't hurt it?
They say extreme heat or extreme cold, it may lessen the effectiveness, but if I only keep it if I keep it in my linen closet at home, nobody in my house is going to OD.
Yeah.
So it's better to carry it with me. For me, say it again?
So how would you be able to get to it?
And then I'd have to rush all the way home, they'd be dead. I mean, it would, let's see here. Maybe not.
Broken.
There we go. Oops. I have a little short video.
Oh, was there? Okay.
There's a little short video. Will it come through?
Let me see.
There's a little short video on how to.
My wife's a pro at this.
Uh-oh.
She's a pro.
So not all OD overdoses end up in death.
Not all overdoses end up in death. All overdoses from fentanyl typically end in death if there's not some sort of intervention. Because the brain has been blocked from the idea that I need to breathe.
Well, at the beginning you mentioned Yakima County has gone up to 2%.
Second in the state.
In the state. Now, is that on just overdose with fentanyl or all of it?
That's all overdoses. That's all overdoses. But the majority of overdoses are fentanyl and opioid overdoses. While we're waiting for that, I'll give you a little bit more information. One of the ways that we can stop and lower the risk of opioid disorder in our community is if you have medication, if you went through surgery, medical, dental, and you were prescribed that and you have it in your medicine chest at home, get rid of it. If you go on the safeyakimavalley.org website, there's a whole list of places that you can take your medication. No questions asked, and just drop off your medication, and it will be properly disposed of.
IHS has that.
IHS has it. The Toppenish Police Department has a box in their lobby.
So does
Farm
the
workers.
farmers.
Farm Workers has one.
Yeah.
So there's places all over the county. And then we also, during National Night Out here in Toppenish, Safe Yakima Valley will be doing, we did it last year, we'll do it again this year. We do what we call shreds and meds. We will have a shred truck that comes, if you have sensitive documents in your home, your bank statements, whatever, that you want, you don't want your personal information getting out, you can bring it and we'll put it in the shred truck and it'll get shredded, and you can also bring any medications back. And we'll have police there to make sure that nobody walks off with it, and it'll be disposed of properly. So, and we're doing that in Grandview on the 26th of April, and we'll be doing it during National Night Out in August here in Toppenish. Yeah.
With the nasal spray, I think the way it's best administered is if after you try to wake them up, you tilt their head back a little bit, lay them flat, tilt their head back a little bit so it drains in, shoot it, and then turn it right away, right after you do that.
So our video will show, we put them in the recovery position if we can, which is on their side with, is it ready to go?
So it's there's no filing.
Okay.
So yeah, sorry.
Okay, that's all right, it's no issue. Yeah, so what we do is we shake, call 911, administer Narcan, and then we turn the person into what we call the recovery position, which is one arm under their head, and you turn them on their side, put the top leg, bend it so that they, like a kickstand, so they don't fall all the way over. And that way, if they vomit or anything like that, they're not gonna breathe in, right? But we've always called 911.
Amen.
And
Sometimes you'll notice that when you stick that in their nose, it starts to wake up.
Yeah, and it's not a bad idea to still go ahead and administer it because those receptors are still covered. So places that you can get naloxone. I brought some today that you can have it. Pharmacies, you can get it at the pharmacy. Now there is a charge for it typically at the pharmacy, but you can also contact the Department of Health, Washington State Department of Health, and they'll mail it to you free. So you can contact them if you need it. There are other community-based organizations that distribute. Safe Yakima Valley is one of them, but there are other agencies around town that you can call and see if they've got it if you need some. The vending machines, there's one, like we said, Yakima here. If you're up in Yakima at OIC, they have a vending machine there on Summitview or in Fruitville. At the DOH, Department of Health, mail order request. And then Yakima Health District has a syringe exchange program, which again is another harm reduction. It's not prevention, it's not treatment, it's harm reduction. So Yakima Health District has that. So on the back of your thing, there's some additional resources that if you want to look for other information on naloxone or fentanyl, those are some good resources to find them.
About how much does it cost if we were to buy one?
You know what? It's been a while. The last time I heard of anybody buying, I think it was about $25.
Oh, wow.
But if you can get it free, you might as well get it free.
Yeah.
Right? All right. Does anybody else have any questions? Are you ready to be superheroes?
Yay.
Yay! All right. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Thank you, Pastor Levi. I think this is awesome that you want to equip your people to know how to help.
It's
Because
awesome
while
you're
there's
here
breath,
to give
there's
us the information.
Yeah. Yes, you're welcome. And you're now qualified to teach this to anybody you want. And Pastor Levi will have the slideshow, so you're welcome to give the slideshow anytime you want. There we are. That's not me. I wish I was that thin. But I do have boxes in Narcan, so if you want some, please come up. I'd be happy to give it to you. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Sure.